So officially, the HGC show starts now, even though we've been talking about HGC this whole time in advance. There's a significant number of HGC questions. Wait, what? Oh, I see. It's in... Right, because China is weird. Wait, what? Oh, the games aren't up yet. Okay, the games for China aren't up yet, so... We're not going to talk about them? Oh, no, they are up. They're just in reverse order. Master League, why do you do this to me? Alright, HGC Europe. Phase 2, the recommended series. And this was tough. This was a little bit tough because there were a lot of 2-3s. And a good number of the 2-3s were actually pretty interesting games. But the one I wanted to recommend is Tricked Esport. I want to recommend for 2 reasons. One, it is not win-loss, 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 which is something we see very, very, very commonly in EU. It's win, win, loss, 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 loss. The reverse sweep out of Tricked Esport, which I think is a pretty big deal. And then every win they had was an Ariel comp. And I think that's significant that Team Expert wasn't able to respond to the RL comp. It wasn't always double support. It wasn't always... It was never really something gimmicky. It was all pretty standard. But it was Ariel, Ariel, Ariel. And... What? I'm crazy. Hey guys, HGC is backwards. The recent one is versus Team Liquid. Am I crazy? It was Dignitas. It was Dignitas versus Team Expert. This was the one. No, that's not the one anyway. It's this week. Master League is trolling me. So Master League is supposed to be organized by reverse date, or at least it used to be. And now it's organized the other way. Am I insane? I didn't sleep last night, for the record. I may be insane. I still recommend that series if you haven't watched it, by the way. All right, it's Fnatic versus Good Guys. Okay. We're back on track. We're back on track. I apologize for the debate. It's Fnatic versus Team Good Guys. And this is a pretty one-sided series in some ways. But Team Good Guys actually managed to take a game off of Fnatic. And more to the point, they took a game off Fnatic on Infernal Shrines, which is a really good map for Fnatic. It's a really good really good map for their playstyle. They understand it really well. They had a really good draft with the Greymane. They had the really good macro pressure. So that's the recommended EU series for the week. I apologize for the debates. Yeah, what is going on? Okay, I'm going to control F5 here. Nope. One day Brightwing will win a game. Brightwing won a game at Midseason Brawl. Technically, she won the entire thing. HGC America Phase 2. Okay, we're going to scroll all the way down here. Nailed it. Alright. So... It's... Is this the right thing? Is this the thing I'm thinking of? The game isn't here yet, is it? One second, guys. I think there's a game missing from Master League, right? Because Gale Force versus Team Freedom isn't up here. Well, that's annoying. Alright, well, it's not up here. But the series I wanted to recommend, and I don't know why Master League doesn't have the game up yet. Whatever you're wrong, Cal, I'll take two. So it's Team Freedom versus Gale Force Esports. The VODs are up. but Master League hasn't posted the game yet. I don't know if that's like a manual entry problem or they just haven't gotten around to it. I'm not crazy. As it turns out, Master League just literally does not have the game up yet. But Team Freedom versus Gale Force Esports. And basically what I want you to pay attention to is how easy it is to throw late game with slow calls. Not bad calls, necessarily, but slow calls. Gale Force, in every game they lost, was in a position to win the game. Like, straight up win the game in the late game if they had made one crisp, firm decision as a team and just executed it. And they had multiple things they could have done. And I think that's the problem. I think in every single game that they lost, they had more than one avenue to victory. And then they tried to do all of them. And that doesn't work. And in particular, watch the games with the idea that Michael Udall is the shot caller, right? When Michael Udall dies, their shot calling gets crisp. Their execution gets really good. every time Michael dies. Which game is missing? The entire Team Freedom versus Gale Force Esports set is missing. It's not there. I don't know what's in its place, but Gale Force Esports played Team Freedom and it's just not there. But yeah, go watch the games. There was even a moment on Sky Temple where I think it was 13-14, that level range, where Udall is split pushing as Dahaka, and he dies to Uther Stitch's Ming. I think there was a DPS there. There were 3 people there. And the call should have been immediately, as soon as they saw 3 people on the bottom side, push in and get the tower, right? The call came after he died. So they burned a bunch of resources to kill him, and then he made the call to push in. And the reason they made the call to push in was like, oh, we're in a 4v5, we can't contest Boss. So if we push in, maybe they'll back up to defend and they won't take Boss. They got Boss, but they ended up getting a keep wall. And getting the keep wall there secured them a keep from top Temple later on. So it was actually a significant trade for them. But it was like 100% the right call. It was executed instantly. But it was only executed after he died. And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in their games. And this is one of those things where, especially when you're playing the bruiser role and you're playing the solo laner, it's very hard to shot call for the foreman when it comes to tactics. And then in a lot of cases when you're trying really hard to focus on your personal play, you're not thinking about the strategy. And then you die, and you're like, I'm dead. I don't have to think about my shit anymore. And strategy all comes back into your mind. You look at the minimap, you're like, go. You instantly know the right thing. If you're going to be the strategic shot caller for your team, and you're going to be the solo laner / bruiser, you need to be able to constantly be doing the strategy and your lane, and your solo lane, whatever it is. This is particularly bad when you're playing Dahaka, other global heroes. It's very difficult. Just the way it is. This is why a lot of really, really strong teams will have a tactical and a strategic shot caller. And the tactical shot caller is always someone who's going to be in the foreman. Sometimes, a lot of the time, it's the tank of the support. Because it's just easier. Also, why off-rolling a shot caller really sucks. Yes. I would have talked more about that game if it was there, but it's not. So we're just gonna skip it. For Korea, any of the games casted on Friday were pretty good. And I'm going to leave it at that. So, MV Black versus RRR. This is just a fun game. MV Black, or MV Miracle versus Raven. Just a fun game. What do you think of Kira's performance this split and his impact on the team overall? Kira, took Team Freedom to another level. When you have someone who can just come in and play mechanically well, that's really good. And then, because it takes a lot of burden off of your team. If you have someone who, if you have a shot caller who's like, I know Genji can get this kill if Genji's good, and then you just call the target and the guy dies, you're like, yeah, good. You don't have to worry, can my Genji do this? right? You're not asking yourself that question. You're only asking yourself the question, can Genji do this? Done. Shoop. But Kira also brought a lot of interesting ideas about drafting to the team. And he brings really good comms. If you've ever listened to Cure play in Salty Eagle League, Storm Elite League. If you've ever listened to him play, he has good comms. He communicates a lot of information, and he's a good. What are they called? There's a name for them. I'm so tired. Announcer? No. They're called like call outers, but it has a better name than that. But it's someone. If you see someone use an important cooldown, you need to call it out. So if you see someone use cleanse, or you see someone use whatever. If you see Jenny use Blizzard, like, you need to call those. There are certain cooldowns that are important and dictate the pace and the flow of the game. And basically, the way shot calling should work is everyone is constantly feeding information to the shot caller, and the shot caller is giving calls back to the team. So let's take a really simple example here. ETC used power slide. Now, if ETC slid in, used power slide, didn't hit, the ETC should be dead. Everyone should just be like, oh, we're just going to push all our buttons and kill ETC. ETC dies. Good job. If ETC doesn't hit anyone on a hard engaged power slide, he's now overextended. His only save mechanic is W, and that should only knock the melee players off. And they should all have their gap closers, right? Because you've been posturing, nothing's happened. Kill ETC. Everyone should just click dead. That should happen every single time an ETC slides in aggressively and misses. If ETC slides in aggressively and hits, and it's only one target, and that target gets cleansed, same thing should happen. Just dead ETC. Muradin Stormbolt. Muradin should not be able to engage and get a pick without Stormbolt. So if Stormbolt gets used, that needs to be called immediately, because you have this window where it's like, we're safe, we can try and go into Muradin's backline, and they're not going to be able to really kill anyone, at least as long as we can, not be bad. So everyone on the team needs to be calling cooldowns, and the shot caller needs to be thinking about what that means, and then making the call about what to do. So when I say Kira has really good comms, I mean he makes those calls. He's like, use cleanse, use VP. And if you watch him stream, he talks to himself. A lot of times he'll be like, this got used, this got used, this got used. And it affects his personal decision-making. One of the things that people are talking about when teams say they tried someone out and yeah, he played well, but they had bad comms, it means they weren't talking. And Roll20, actually, if you watch their scrim that they streamed with Dyrus, Justin had really bad comms, and Justin commented on it later. He usually talks more, but he was nervous because of the streaming. So, like, that's a good example of the difference it can make. Go watch those games, and ignore Dyrus. Like, just look at the 4v4 that happens in the 4-man, and then look at other games with Roll20, and just look at the 4v4. So Dyrus was in the solo lane, not a factor. Look at the difference between the execution of the play when Justin is talking versus when Justin is not talking and calling cooldowns. It's actually significant. Obviously, Glau is shot calling, but if you're not feeding your shot caller information, then your shot caller will not be able to perform as well. They won't happen. You can't do it. And a lot of very good mechanical players have very bad comms. So introducing a player like Cure, who is really good mechanically. Saray said they picked up Yoda over Crone due to comms. Yeah, it's very common. It is. What are some tips to improve on mechanics? So there's two aspects to mechanics. It's knowing the order to push the buttons in and knowing when to push the buttons. That sounds silly. But you have to learn one before you know the other. So the best way to improve your mechanics is you start out knowing what combos are good on a hero. Easy example is Kerrigan combo, Zeratul rewind combos, stuff like that. And you go into try mode, and you do the combo over and over and over again for hours. until you can consistently hit the combo, like, every single time. And then you go into, like, unranked draft or quick match, and you do it against real people. And then you take it into Hero League. Pros have a different version of this, where they do it in Tri Mode, and then they do it in Hero League, and then they do it in and then they do it in scrims, and then they do it in professional games. 1v1 duels are actually not at all a bad way of improving your mechanics after the Tri Mode thing, but you need to build muscle memory. You really do. And one of the nice things about Tri Mode, one of the, like, the really awesome things about Tri Mode now is it has a slow mode. So you can actually build your muscle memory at a slower speed and then ramp up. That's totally fine. That's the way you should do things. If you're learning to play the piano, you don't immediately go like, really, really fast. If you're learning scales, you go da 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 da, and you do a little thumb skip to get the full 8 scale, and then you go back. And you do it with one hand, and then you do it with the other hand, and then you do it with one hand really fast, and then you do it with the other hand really fast, and then you do it with both hands together really fast. You should always, when you're talking about muscle memory, and this is just true of anything that involves mechanical execution of anything, playing an instrument, dancing, high-paced video games, you start slow, go up if you can. And you should practice to the point of failure. So you should start slow, and then once you have it at that speed, you should increase the speed. And if you can do it at that speed, do it faster. And if you do it at that speed, do it faster. You just keep doing it faster until you fail, and then keep doing that until you can do it at that speed, and then move up again. Basically, the way to improve mechanics is very, very boring. Are you casting HGC Open tonight? I believe I'm casting the 3rd place match. I might not do it. Since I didn't cast last night, they might give it to someone else. I'm not 100% sure yet. Normally, no one wants to stay up to cast 3rd place match. Normally, I'm the only person willing to do it. So I'm so bad at MOBAs. It took me like 700 games on Illidan to start carrying them. And it's gonna happen. Like if you're not a mechanically inclined player, if you don't have the background in terms of mechanical skill, because it's something that is across games and across heroes. But it's something that you can improve significantly faster by practicing it on purpose. There's this entire research. There's an entire field of science about intentional practice and the difference it makes in terms of improvement. A lot of people are aware of the 10,000 hour rule in terms of it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. The 10,000 hour rule only applies to intentional practice. You could spend 30,000 hours of blech practice on something and actually not be an expert at it. And you could spend 10,000 hours at something and be an expert. It's just a matter of the quality of your practice. This is actually a really fun conversation. I hope you guys are having as much fun as I am. How do you feel about playing multiple heroes? Is it better to be with one hero and stick to it, or would you recommend? 25% of everyone who makes GM every season is a one-trick. You can go look that up. You can check their HOTS logs. 25% of everyone who makes GM on every single ladder is a one-trick every season. There's a guy in Korea who has an 80% win rate on Vala and a 20% win rate on every other hero he plays. The extension of this is that you should always, if you're actually trying to rank up and play competitively, you always need to be playing a hero you're good at. If you're only good at one hero, play that hero. Ideally, you would be better at more than one hero, and you should practice more than one hero. Yeah. I can't do vector targeting at all, so playing Alark is impossible for me. You can do it if you practiced. Yesterday, we had a QM game where I was like, okay, here's the plan. Our team fights suck. Forget about macro this game. Forget about winning. We're going to go for team fights at every opportunity so we can figure out what we're doing wrong in team fights. Ozerman was so tilted. And there's actually, Extreme Bunny, there's a wonderful post by Ghostunk on Reddit, and he actually went through and did the math. He did an analysis on MMR versus hero level. And basically, for every, this is old levels, so it's actually would be even more dramatic now. For every level you level up a hero, your MMR on that hero improves by about 100. So if you're a 3k MMR player playing on a hero you've literally never, like if you're a 3k MMR player and you're playing heroes that are all at level 10, and you play a hero you've literally never played before, you're suddenly playing at like a 2k MMR level. That's basically a full league. Right? That's the difference between like playing Gold 1 and Plat 1. So that's not just speculative. There's actually math that proves that if you play heroes you're good at, you're actually better. and it's a noticeable difference in your MR. The reason Blizzard implemented the quick match matchmaking rule, where lower level heroes, when your hero's lower level, you're paired with lower MMR players, is because of that analysis. And shout out to Ghost Dunk. Always proud to have him as a member of the Nexus Schoolhouse community. He does a lot of analysis for us when requested. Smork therapy. I actually like that. That's actually really good. How to get better at team fights, Smork. And it's true. If you're on a team, definitely practice. There's a League of Legends coach who actually forced his players to play ARAM because it helped them with their mechanics and communication. And it's not like they're not going to play competitive ARAM, but it helped them with other. They were using ARAM to practice specific things. If you're on a team, go into quick match and practice a specific thing. Like, it doesn't matter what the enemy team comp is. In many ways, it doesn't matter what your team comp is. You can practice anything if you're just thinking about, we're only going to practice this thing. So, think about what you're practicing. Try and practice just that thing. And you'll get better at that thing faster. And then you can move on to the next thing. What is Wizard? Wizard is a team that is a result of educational scrims. All right. We're going to finally... Did I finish talking about recommended series? I did not. I recommended Korea. We're going to gloss over the Y. I recommended an A. I recommended a U. None of the good teams played each other in China. So China has a pretty simple rule. It only has... It had 3 good teams. I'm going to say it only has 2 good teams at the moment. Although E-Star is okay. So basically CE versus Super Perfect Team and maybe CE or Super Perfect Team versus E-Star are worth watching. Other than that, China's just watching mostly for funsies. Because the format's weird. It doesn't even feel like HGC, to be honest. And they lost most of their good players to other games and a significant number of their really strong shot callers. And they lost essentially their rich. They lost Xingxi. They lost their best mechanical player to another game. So I feel watching one HGC region is already a lot. I mean, I watch every region, but I mean, obviously, it's my job. I'm bringing this to you guys. And so I recommend one series per week in case you don't watch every region. Do you think the one-hand Varian was a disrespectful gimmick or something that could be a thing? I mean, I think all of Varian's builds are honestly viable. I think Taunt is, on average, the most impactful and the hardest to play around, let's say, in competitive. Because the survivability is so high, you have more opportunities. His other builds, you can just die. Like Colossus Smash, you go in, you try and secure a kill, and then don't trade 1-for-1 is like the ideal situation. You may end up trading 1-for-1. It's not great. Twin Blades, it's very counterable. It's just very easy to deal. One thing that I haven't seen anyone do, I don't think, is draft Uther early and then go Twin Blades Varian. Because one of the things people are doing as a response to Uther is not drafting stuns, right? If you don't stun Twin Blades Varian, he will win. Like, Twin Blades Varian with Shield Wall and potentially Divine Shield and Uther Healing will actually be able to, like, 2v3 or 2v4. So, no. There's none of the Varian builds are bad. They're just really specific. And on average, Taunt has the highest impact. And because Wave Clear exists... Because think about a center draft. Not a lot of tanks have Wave Clear. Right? Some of them do. Jahan has a notable exception. Stitches has okay Wave Clear, especially with Slam build. Arthas has okay Wave Clear, but he's not always drafted the tank. Sometimes he's drafted the Soul Lane. But for the most part, the meta tanks, like Nubrak, don't really have Wave Clear. So if you draft Varian in your bruiser slot, well, now you have to make sure you have a good solo laner, because Varian's not really a solo laner, and you want to put him in a matchup that he can tie, but who does he tie against, really? No one. So if you don't draft Varian as your tank, your early game becomes a lot more awkward, and your draft has to have like a very specific focus on making sure your lane matchups don't suck, so you can carry Varian to 10. Drafting Varian as your tank is really easy to get to 10 with, as long as you just don't feed. Like, that's all you have to do is not feed. If you draft Varian with Colossus Smash or Twin Blades, it's very different. It's much harder to get to 10. You can be punished a lot more easily because your draft is going to have to be more wave clear centric, and that can be a problem. The question is, why not do the same thing for Sonya, Illidan, or Chen? And that's a really valid question, because Illidan has better chase, and in a meta of highly mobile heroes, why would you not do that? Also, you know, Illidan and Chen and Sonya can win their lanes. Varian can't win a lane, so the draft considerations don't exist. There are highly specific scenarios where I think Twin Blades Varian or Colossus Smash Varian would be really good, but they have to be basically engineered in the draft and then have it be a surprise, which means it's only going to work once or twice, and then people are going to figure it out. But it's not disrespectful, it's just gimmicky. The first question in the thread. So again, there is a Reddit thread posted every single Friday for the show where people can ask questions that maybe require more depth or research. And I try and answer this. Does the GFE loss surprise you? No. Team Freedom really stepped up their game a lot. There was just day-to-day, even week-to-week improvement. How do I never see this thread? I don't know. I post it in announcements on the Nexus Schoolhouse Discord. I posted on Friday. I re-announce it on Sunday, in case anyone forgot. So if you're on the Nexus Schoolhouse Discord and you have notifications enabled, then you should just like always see it. And that's the Nexus Schoolhouse Discord if you would like to join up. It's in the announcements channel every single time. So throughout the weekend, as HGC is being played, if you have questions, that thread is always there, and then you can go post your questions, and then they will have a detailed analysis already. I think you should post it the day of the show for Reddit. I tried posting it on Sunday. It wasn't as good. Also, the reason I post it on Friday is so that as people ask the questions, I can, because sometimes the questions get into like draft considerations and I have to actually go ask, or it's like someone misclicks a talent and I actually have to go ask. For instance, one of the questions was Zealot versus Dig Sky. A noob went leeching bugs with no other talents for it. Misclick? Yes, JPL misclicked leeching scarabs. He would never do that. And his tweet actually says, please, God, Hero League, don't take this talent. Doesn't actually say that. It's just about as bad, though. It says, don't do it, please, HL boys. It was a misclick. Okay, don't do it. Exclamation mark. I have a question for Uther's win rate is solo in an A. Actually, you're not the only person with that question. It's in the thread. We're going to get to it. I promise. Stick around. We'll get to the Uther question. We're actually going to talk a lot about supports because there's a lot of interesting support stuff going on. I'm just going to get these threads, these questions real quick. I just know people want to wait through these question answers, Joe. Reddit's very short term. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should post it on Tuesday. But then, like, why not just show up to the stream? Why don't I just post a reminder on Tuesday that the stream is going to exist? Maybe I'll try it differently next week. I'll try it differently this week, right? I'll do it differently this weekend and see if the response is better. Fair? Everyone okay with that? This game is not. So there's a question about a game that's not on Master League. And it's Gale versus No Tomorrow and Cursed. Maybe it is on Master League. Wait. Oh, it's this one. So Cursed Hollow. So the question is about the draft, and it's Stitch's solo frontline? Question mark? And the basic question is, why does this work? So the standard... What happened to the statistics, by the way? Are there stats? You talking about the stats thread, or... What's the best way to make a key lime cheesecake? The best way to make any cheesecake is to realize cheesecakes are actually a custard. Oh, that's the replay problem. So stats are only there when the replay is uploaded, and sometimes Blizzard lags internally, and yeah, that's a Blizzard thing. Nothing we can do about it. So the standard draft, and anyone who's read my drafting guide knows this. The standard draft, the current meta, is Bruiser, Tank, Support, Range Damage, Flex, and in those 5, you need to accumulate Soul Laner, and preferably some mix of burst, ability, sustained, auto damage, like some combination of those things. Double support is allowed to break this rule. Double support doesn't have to break this rule. Obviously, we've seen many compositions with double tank, double support, carry, right? We've seen that. See it all the time. But double support is allowed to break this rule. And the reason it's allowed to break this rule is that if you have one tank that can stand in front and not die, you're in good shape. That tank needs to have a disengage, or someone in your back lane needs to have a disengage. One of the best disengages in the game is Gust. And if you pair Gust with Force Wall, which actually might not have been taking this game, this might have been Archon. But if you pair Gust with Force Wall, it's like the ultimate disengage. Like you Gust in the way, you Force Wall, they can never get back to you. They just can't. It doesn't work. So when you have that kind of control of your zoning, you don't need a Bruiser. What a Bruiser does in most compositions is either works as an anti-flanker. So something like a Sonya. Someone steps up and tries to get into your backline, Sonya just wrecks them. Right? She just does so much damage. Sonya can also dive into the front line and be disruptive that way, while tanks do zoning and peeling jobs. So that's the Bruiser tank dynamic. The Bruiser tank dynamic gives you control of at least 2 points, which prevents flanks and dive and supplements peel. There's some Bruisers like Illidan act more as like advancers, you can call them, where they'll dive in and take a lot of pressure off the backline just by being disrupted themselves, and then the support enables the dive, so everyone just kind of goes in. That's the nature of a dive comp, right? Someone has to dive in and then everyone else follows. And then you have weird heroes like Butcher who actually are kind of like ambushers. They actually depend on flanks and catching the tank and the support off guard and the Bruiser. Double support win rate so bad, to be honest. It's a macro problem. I never thought I would say that. I'd never be like double support's losing because people are not fighting. Dive equals super aggressive flank. Yeah, dive equals flank from the front in many cases, especially with like Tyrael or Greymane. But that's the way the dynamic works. So Stitch's frontline, totally fine. Healer in the form of Kerosene, totally fine because he has mobility. He doesn't need peel. Stitches can't peel. Kerosene as a support doesn't need peel because he's his high mobility. Tracer does not need peel because high mobility. Falstad does not need peel because high mobility, and he can peel for his entire team with Gust. Tassadar does not need peel because he has E. So you have a violation of it's not really a violation of the rule. Tassadar is taking the Bruiser spot, but because he gives vision, and because he has zone control, and because no one on the team needs peel, the one thing Stitches doesn't have as a tank is an escape and peel. Gust is an escape for Stitches, you can think of it that way, and no one on the team needs peel because they all have their own personal survivability and mobility. So solo frontline Stitches works because of all the other factors. That's not a comp that would work in like a pub game. I would not put Stitches in Hero League that way, and just no, it wouldn't happen. Most consistent comp, even in competitive, seems to be one tank, two assassins, one support, one spec. On average, I believe that's actually true. Expert versus Dux, Dragon. Expert Genji plus Illidan and also no Soul Laner. I don't know what this question from Ozerman. I'm going to call you out, Ozerman. I don't know what you meant by this question, because Illidan was in the solo lane during this game. Illidan is a really good solo laner. And he was in the solo lane. He had a hat on. He was actually beating Chen in lane because he had a hat. It was Illidan versus Chen, and whenever the hat wasn't there, Illidan was like tying, and whenever the hat was there, he was winning. So, as Expert versus Ducks. This game. So this is the draft that's being talked about. Maybe this isn't the draft that's being talked about. Wait, was I looking at the wrong game? I might have been looking at the wrong game. Let's look at this game real quick. Okay, this is the right game. Illidan is a solo lane. Was Illidan not in the solo lane? JPL mentions future bios being especially important as it gives Stitches an escape as well as Peel. Yes. It's absolutely true. If you don't... Stitches basically is missing 1/4 of his ability to tank. Maybe even half his ability to tank if he doesn't beat your Bile. I guess it was, how does the combo of Illidan plus Genji work? You hunt in and kill someone. Like, Genji is all about harassing until someone gets low, and then going in for the kill. Illidan's all about split pushing until someone's overextended or low, and then hunting in for the kill. So, at least in the current meta. I think Gorge is good in, like, against Cho'Gall or with Medivh on Towers of Doom. Some exceptions. But Gorge is like a, maybe you can call it a pick heroic, where you're really, really looking for pick. And the nice thing in pub games is that Gorge provides Stitches with his own follow-up to hooks, because the only way Stitches wins games is if you hit a hook and then someone actually dies. And it's not up to you to kill someone. It's up to you to hit the person, and then follow-up CC from your team gets the kill. There's actually a Stitches question we're going to talk about. But yeah, this draft is pretty straightforward. It's get people low and then go all in. You have the hat and the hunt to come in. We are seeing Malf after his mega nerf. Was the nerf not as big as a lot? So we've been seeing Malf. We're actually gonna we'll go to this. We'll click on Malfurion. I'm a little loopy. I can tell I'm a little loopy, but I'm also having a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys are having fun too. We've been seeing Malf. We've been seeing him in pretty much every region. It's Europe, North America, Europe, Korea. It's not like a lot of Malf. We can, you know, we're seeing some Malf. We're not seeing a lot of Malf. And when we are seeing Malfurion, it tends to be in situations where you have some other mechanic to deal with burst. Right? So before, if you were against a lockdown comp, you had Cleanse, Twilight Dream. Those were your anti-burst mechanics. And Twilight Dream was more of an anti-dive mechanic, so it was really specific. You needed to have situations where they couldn't push buttons, and it made the difference between living and dying. Because your heal wasn't going to cut it if someone was getting focused in competitive play. It just doesn't work that way. So we're seeing him on sustained maps. A lot of Tomb of the Spider Queen, a lot of Infernal Shrines, a lot of Towers of Doom, a lot of Sky Temple. These are skirmishing maps. These are sustained maps where you're constantly fighting in lane. Malf is still unrivaled in that capacity because of Innervate. You can make an argument for Morales from levels 1 to 4, and you can make an argument for Ariel with a really, really good battery. But they don't have Innervate. Innervate is unique to Malfurion's kit. The only other thing that gives anyone mana is Probius' 13 talent, right? There's just not, it's not there. You notice we're not seeing him on, with the exception of this one Infernal Shrine games, we're not really seeing him on massive teamfight maps. It's all laning maps with skirmishes. All right. The reason we're seeing it on Infernal Shrines, it seems to be mostly... So healing over time is really good on Genji because you can put the hot on him and then Genji can go in. So we saw that. And in this case, we have Sank, right? For the playing Ducks, we have Sank. Sanctification is an anti-burst mechanic. They lost this game. But it's becoming more difficult to draft Malfurion. It's not that he is bad per se. It's that he's bad at dealing with burst-focused blow-up. And they took away really his only tool of dealing with CC chains like that. So if one team gets Uther, and if you have a hero like Stitches or any sort of other thing, and you need to have follow-up CC, getting follow-up from your support is a little bit easier. So I'm not going to say Malf is unplayable because he has wave clear and double support's a thing. But I think he's more niche, and I think that we should see him in double support primarily, or as a solo support on skirmish-based maps, where teams draft specifically to win the early phase and tempo out the game. If you're getting to the late game on Dragonshire and you have to do a 5v5 team fight, for whatever reason, you didn't draft a global, they didn't draft a global, so you're just straight up 5v5s. I don't think Malf wins that, assuming equal levels of execution. So Malf isn't unplayable, it's just that he's not a god tier support anymore. Made a new lightweight website? Yes. I saw that. That's actually really cool. Poor cocoon usage. And something new to ensure the follow-up with E on something can't escape. Yeah. Sorry if you've answered this already, but do you think Tron is viable now? I thought Tron was viable before, but highly draft specific. She got buffed, so she's better, but she's still draft specific. You need a certain amount of coordination for Tron to make sense. And with so many double support comps running around anyway, I don't necessarily think Tron is the one I would go for. Tron triple warrior with one ranged hero seems good. I think that comp is still viable on maps like Dragonshire. Tricked ran it, multiple maps and won with it until they banned the Dahaka. So the Dahaka is really the critical part about that. But you can't, like, Malf still has Innervate, heal over time, and wave clear. So Malf is really good. Bossomasti actually making a really good point in chat too. Malf is now a support you can pick late in the draft and have him be good because you know what you're going up against and you know the enemy. Like, oh, you don't have any of Malf's weaknesses. We're just gonna take Malf here. But I don't think we've seen Malf Uther yet, have we? We've seen a lot of Uther Ariel, but we've not seen Malf Uther. You know what Uther's problem is? Mana and cooldowns. You know what Innervate does? Increases your mana and reduces your cooldowns. You know the problem with double support is wave clear. You know what Malf has? Wave clear. Malf Uther Ducks versus Liquid Game 1. Oh, it is right there. No, wait. This is Malf versus Uther. I want Malf and Uther on the same team. Debated. You know the problem with double support is? Yeah, everyone hates it. That's the problem with double support, is that literally every single team hates it. Oh, Malf Uther. There we go. So we did see it one time. It lost. I blame playing Ducks for that, though. Blame playing Ducks. Malf is not as bad as pros are making him out to be. He's not dumpster tier. He's just different. We're starting to see Thrall more often. Did the rework help us pro play out a whole lot? The buffs this last patch helped him. Thrall was overall nerfed, in my opinion. His team fight was technically better in terms of damage, but his sustain was worse. And because of his low health pool, his sustain is kind of critical to his character. But then they rebuffed his sustain, and now I think he's in a fine place. The weird thing about Thrall is he's not a soul winner anymore. He really does, because of the way his quest mechanics work, want to be in the 4-man. And so I think Thrall needs to be fundamentally redrafted. And if you draft him, you need to either go triple melee or draft a ranged soul winner, which gives you slightly more limited options. Dreadnought said Leoric has the most nuanced lane matchups, but didn't expand on that point. What would be to have to do different as a Dahaka versus Thrall as Chen? Leoric has nuanced lane matchups because he has sustain, wave clear, and kill potential. Normally, like, Zagara only has push potential. All Zagara can do to win a lane is push. That's all she can do. That's all she can do to win. All Thrall can do to win a lane is kill his opponent. Like, he can't out-clear. He can't siege. All Thrall can do to win a lane is freeze the lane, so you're zoning the enemy person away from experience by threat of killing them, or actually kill them. That's it. That's all you can do to win the lane. Zag doesn't have wave clear. Wave clear doesn't win the lane. Wave clear can only tie lanes. Winning the lane means either killing your opponent or killing buildings. You can make an argument on Tomb that winning the lane can mean zoning the opponent out of picking up the gems. You make an argument on Braxis that winning the lane means zoning the opponent off of the point. And you make an argument on Dragonshire that winning the lanes means zoning the opponent off the point while tying experience. Those lanes are a little bit different. One of the reasons we heavily emphasize them in the Going Alone show when we're talking about laning matchups. But like, those are the ways you win an opponent, right? You either kill your opponent, you zone them out of experience by threat of killing your opponent, you outpush them so you get more experience, or you take the objective away from them. Right? Those are like the 4 ways you can win a lane. Most soul linears can do one of those. Sonya is actually a sustained push hero. A lot of people don't really think of Sonya that way, but as long as Sonya has a wave, she can spin on the wave and trade cooldowns really, really efficiently, which means any damage she puts onto her opposite number in the lane is free. So if she's against a melee person, she can prevent that person from ever stepping up to the wave and zone them away. And if she's against a ranged person, she has to hit spear to do that. Otherwise, she just loses. Sonya should lose every lane against any ranged hero as long as the range can dodge spear. But Leoric can clear. He can sustain off his opponent. He can potentially kill them. He can capture the point in 1v1s because of the way it works. And he can't necessarily do all of those in every matchup. He cannot win the lane against Sonya in terms of 1v1. He can't do it. Sonya's sustain on the wave is higher than Leoric's sustain from draining her. So if he's 1v1ing Sonya and the minion wave is there, he will slowly lose health, and Sonya will not. This means that he has to back up first, and Sonya will eventually push into towers and get free damage. You can, rotate up to gank her if she's overextended, but that's not like Leoric winning the lane, right? That's your team having to rotate and help. And if you rotate someone up the soul lane and don't get the kill, then the other team just won a huge advantage. If you rotate someone up the soul lane and you do get the kill, they rotate up in time to not miss the soak and they get an advantage elsewhere on the map. That's also kind of a win in a lot of cases. But Leoric does beat Sonya on the point. So if you need, say you're a 4-man, 100% wins the point on Braxis Holdout. They have Sonya as their soul linear. Your last pick. You pick Leoric because you're going to win the point. And if you win every single point on Braxis, and you get every single Zerg wave, then you're going to have a significant tempo advantage. It doesn't matter that you're losing the lane very slowly because you're winning the point 100% of the time. How do you punish rotations in pubs? Play Zeratul. Play Nova, play Zeratul, play a stealthy. Just play someone who has 1v1 potential and kill them. But yeah, but Leoric can win the lane against other heroes. And understanding if you can win, if you can always tie, or if you can win in some other way. Like, let's say you can't win the lane versus Thrall, because he's just going to poke you. You can't actually push into him. He can manipulate the wave such that it's always on his side of the map, and he can always dodge your W, and he can always poke you and play with you in such that, whatever. He's losing. He's not necessarily winning the lane, but he's not necessarily losing the lane, or if he is, he's losing it very, very slowly. Well, Leoric's wave clear allows him to rotate. So if you're 1v1ing Thrall on, Tomb, you can clear the wave and then go help your team mid and have a 5v4 and then come back to your lane. You can't actually kill Thrall. But if it's Tomb of Spider Queen, you can help your team and tie your lane. Right? And especially with Royal Focus and his ability at level 4 to suddenly rotate between lanes very, very efficiently, there's lots of matchups where that's true for him. I'm really bad at laning, to be honest. Laning's hard, honestly. solo laning is difficult in general. You need to have a good understanding of your hero, and you need to have a good understanding of any hero and how your cooldowns and your resources match up and who wins. For instance, if you're solo laning a Sonya, you should take block pretty much 100% of the time. There's very few matchups where block is not the optimal talent if you just need to win your lane. Every time I see a Sonya not take block versus Leoric, I'm like, well, Leoric can win that lane now. Block is like one of the best solo lane talents in the game. Everyone who has block should take it if they're in the solo lane. Just always take block if you're in the solo lane. So, I mean, the reason I started going alone as a show, which airs on Wednesdays for those of you who want to tune in tomorrow, every Wednesday I do a show called Going Alone. It's all about studying specific solo laning matchups and explaining why they work the way they do at a high level. They're always pulled from professional replays or top amateur replays. The first one was a little bit of a personal favorite. It was TLV versus Dahaka. Spoiler: post 7, TLV will win the lane versus Dahaka, and he will tie it prior to that. Pretty effectively. He will actually win the point on Braxis every Wednesday. It didn't happen last week. There were things that came up with my cat, but normally every Wednesday. And the episodes are ported over to YouTube after they air on Twitch. So if you can't catch them live, they're on YouTube. I think there's like more than 10 of them now. There's actually quite a lot of them. Some of them are a little bit longer than others. The Leoric versus Sonya matchup was my first attempt, and it's a little bit longer than I intended it to be because I like talking. But some of the later episodes are like 15 minutes long, and they're concise and clear and fun. What happened to Dark Matter? Nothing. Dark Matter's fine. Corrupt Cycle is sick. He lost like 4 pounds and wasn't eating. So. Slothcast solo lane special. Freedom versus GFE. We saw Team Freedom put their carry, quote unquote, cure onto Abathur. This is a hero pull issue. Like, when you draft Diva, Nasmus is going to play Diva. When you draft X, you know, it's obviously going to be Zugrug on the tank. It's just a matter of the fact that the draft they made, Kier couldn't only play Abathur. Everyone else was so good on the heroes that they were on that there was no reason to put anyone else in Abathur. Also, Abathur's a hard hero to play. A lot of people seem to think that Abathur is like easy to play for some reason. Abathur is a very hard hero to play at a very high level. You need a lot of awareness of what's going on constantly. You need a lot of attention. You need the ability to just like focus 100%. Also, Kira plays a lot of Abathur. If you watch his stream, you will see him play Abathur. There's no reason not to put Kira and Abathur in that column. Same series. Dread and Gilly seem to put a lot of emphasis on the map pick, expecting GFE to win on Braxis, expecting Freedom to win on Tomb. Whereas the teams tend to be putting more emphasis on first pick. Both the maps were the result of previously losing the team first picking over a map. Certain team... Okay. Other MOBAs have one map. Like Chris has argued he's one of the easiest heroes to play at the pro level. Okay, Abathur's hard to play, easy to play mechanically. There's nothing difficult about Abathur mechanically, unless you count the fact that you can clone a target that's hard to play. But putting your mines in the right places at the right time requires a lot of understanding of where the enemy team wants to be and when. Because it's essentially a ward, right? You're using it to slow down rotations. In some cases, you're using it not to slow down rotations. You just want to know if they walked past. So you have to put the mine down in such a way that it will not trigger, but it will see every rotation. And different comps, different maps, different ways heroes rotate, that will change your mine position. The level of knowledge needed to play Abathur at like a super, super high level is actually pretty stellar. One of the reasons that Kyocha is such a good Abathur is because Kyocha is not necessarily the best mechanical player, but his game knowledge is like way up there. So Kyocha and Abathur just like go together so incredibly well. Can you be the tiebreaker? What did Dredd say? I know Dredd doesn't think Abathur's hard to play. He's always thought that. Same way he's always thought Brightwing is bad and Tyrande is silly. Map pick. Most MOBAs all have one map. So you get really good at playing that one map, and the question is, who's better at the game? That team wins. Right? It's easy. Heroes of the Storm has more than one map, and the meta on every map and the strategies that work on every map and the amount of practice you can put on it into every map is different. Certain teams have certain styles of play that excel on other maps and are awful on other maps. So when we're talking about a team winning on a map, it's because historically they have a good win rate on the map. Dig and Toss, really good early game aggression, really good understanding of what I like to call every wave rotations, where every single wave is shot called in the early game to get a significant tempo advantage. Every time someone overextends in the early game, boom, dead. Take advantage of that, push. That kind of playstyle is really good on Infernal Shrines and really bad on Warhead Junction. If you go look at Dig and Toss' win rate, they have a really good win rate on Infernal Shrines and a really bad win rate on Warhead Junction. It's not a coincidence. Certain playstyles excel on certain maps. So certain teams have a certain amount of have a certain style like they play. They practice it a lot. Certain heroes lend themselves to certain styles, so they practice those heroes a lot. And those heroes in that playstyle are not necessarily good on every map. Actually, you can argue debatably say that League has two maps. I don't know anything about League. If you want to read Lord Vu's comment. So it makes a big difference having different maps. It's not to be underestimated. Can you explain the priority on Stitches at the moment? Stitches does at least half of the things a tank should do. He does them pretty well. And he does assassin level damage, albeit spread damage, in addition to that. Also, he has wave clear with that build. With Slam build, he actually has really reasonable wave clear. And he can auto-win games in the late game by hitting the right hook. And the question goes on. Calf landed, quotes, a number of hooks. And here's a definition. Here's the definition you should use for if a hook landed. It's not if it hits someone. That's not the definition. A hook lands if and only if it secures a kill. In order for a hook to be good, someone has to die on the enemy team. Not on your team. We saw some hooks where someone died on the Stitches team when he hit a hook. That's not how you do that. In order for hooks to matter, teams need to have good comms. And they need to have a follow-up CC that is saved specifically for hooks. When we see JPL and Stitches, he hits a hook, and then Uther, Bakery hits Uther stun or Malph's root. Mene, right? It's Mene, hits Kael'thas' stun. Doesn't matter. There needs to be Stitches, and there needs to be a follow-up CC. Follow-up CC needs to hit, and the damage needs to follow up that CC, and then the person needs to die, and that's when a hook counts. The record for this in competitive play, I believe, is 36. I believe Noblesse hit 36 hooks in a row in a game. Sometime last year. It was on Tomb of Spider-Queen against a Chinese team. 36 hooks, 36 kills. I think that's the record. I might be misremembering that game. It might have been less than that. He might have hit 36 hooks in terms of like actually hitting. He didn't miss a single one all game, and it was only like 17 or 18 kills. So it's 50% success rate by that definition. He literally did not miss a single hook that game. I watched the replay. I think it was less kills than that. I think it was 17 or 18, but like half the hooks resulted in kills, and every single hook hit, which is still impressive. So here's how to evaluate if a team is good at playing Stitches. Watch the Stitches player. Every time he throws out a hook, if the hook hits, is there follow-up CC? Does the target die? The target can be saved by the enemy team if they're working well. They have Aegis, they have cleanse plus gust or whatever. They have tools that can make the save. But if a team does not secure kills on the hooks, the team should not be playing Stitches. You can't ignore like one quarter of a hero's kit and be like, they'll be fine with the rest. Doesn't work that way. And yes, in the mid and late game, part of the issue with GFE's play was when they drafted Stitches, they did not follow up on every single hook. And they didn't necessarily draft follow-up. I think they had a game where I was really disappointed they didn't draft any follow-up at all. I can't check it. Well, I can look. But it may not be on here. Not the right tab. No, there we go. Gale Force. Stitches. No, they have the Uther stun here. What game am I thinking of? It might have been one of the Team Freedom games. Those aren't on here yet, though. Can Hook still be considered successful if you trade positively in CDs? Like, if you hook a Falstad and he has to blow Gust? Yes, technically. Anytime you trade cooldowns efficiently, you're winning. That's technically true. But it's not the ideal, right? It's just not bad. There's a difference between good and not bad. Do you agree Illidan is kind of game-breaking on Sky Temple right now? For the record, Illidan has always been game-breaking on Sky Temple if you're really good at playing Illidan comps, because he can solo the thing with Hunt. He has the camp pressure, and then he can come in. Anytime there's a single temple phase, he's bad, and you should go do boss or split push. But anytime there's a double temple phase, Illidan should win by like at least 1.25 temples, plus potentially more damage and more soak. Illidan has literally always been in the meta, and at least in China, on Sky Temple. Battlefield of Eternity. Sonya took block, which makes sense for Soul Inner, but Murden also took block. I'm going to say this. I don't understand why Murden took block. I remember the game you're talking about. I don't remember who did it. It was an EU game. It might have been Expert versus Fnatic. I could find the EU tab. Maybe it was this tab, and I hit... There we go. Battlefield Eternity. Was it this game? It was this game. Pretty sure it was this game. Murden took block against Genji, Karazim. I guess he's technically taking it against the Greymane, but I don't know. Stormbolt. Extra damage on Stormbolt is pretty good against Genji, and it's pretty good against Karazim. And Third Wind is just good, really good out-of-combat sustain, and Uther's an in-combat healer, not an out-of-combat healer. Also, block is already 75 armor, so it doesn't stack with Uther's armor, which significantly reduces the value since you're already getting armor from another source. I'm gonna disagree with Bad Benny here on taking block. He may have misclicked. I mean, misclick is like the best explanation. Otherwise, it's just a mistake. Also, apparently Arthas did not take Rhyme here. Rhyme would have helped him in the soul lane, but Sonya should just win that lane and over time, but it's Battlefield of Eternity, right? It doesn't go on for very long. So Fnatic is clearly thinking, we're going to win this in the team fight, therefore I don't need Rhyme. Which I think is pretty reasonable. Also, Rhyme would have... And in the team fight, Rhyme would have gotten wrecked by Zarya. When is it appropriate to pick Li Ming, and when should you pick a different mage for your comp, and which ones? Like before mentions. Li Ming doesn't need peel. The biggest appeal of Li Ming is Wave of Force can help you secure picks or interrupt things that are really critical. We've seen Li Ming drafted in EDC when EDC was in the meta. Disintegrate has a really high tick rate, which is important versus things like Cocoon. And she doesn't need peel. She is pretty much self-sustaining. So Li Ming is a really good accessory into hypercarry comps in some ways, because you can go... The problem is you go double backliner, right? You go hypercarry plus Li Ming plus double support plus your tank. Then one of your supports is in the solo lane, so you're really just trying to win the team fights heavily at that point. You're not trying to win the laning phase at all. Gul'dan has really good wave clear. You draft Gul'dan when you need wave clear, and when you need a counter swing heroic like Horrify. If the comp you're up against is not countered in some way by Horrify, then Gul'dan is always slightly questionable. Kael'thas has a stun, so anytime you need follow-ups, you see Kael'thas is really good. Stitches Kael'thas. If you have Stitches, you should consider Kael'thas. And that's kind of a weird dynamic because Kael'thas is a tank is a mage that normally requires peel, but ideally Stitches will bring the target to you, and therefore you're far enough back that you're going to be safe. And if you're up against a dive comp, you should have mana barrier. But basically, Li Ming is always a safe pick, whereas every other mage has requirements that need to be met in the draft for them to be good. Chromie's really good against Ariel. She's really good against siege comps because she's defensive. A 4-man push comp will lose to a 3-man defense that includes Chromie, which is a big consideration. What about Jaina? Jaina's combo is, I think, the highest burst, but over the longest period of time. And generally speaking, if you're gonna be able to kill someone, the difference isn't that big. Like the difference between Jaina's combo is usually, and Chromie's combo, or Gleaming's combo, or Chaos's combo, is usually not the difference between the target living and the target not living. And she doesn't provide wave clear because you need Blizzard to secure kills. So you kind of need to get value out of Ring. Like, you need the Wombo combo for Jaina to be good. You can make an argument with Malfurion and Shenda's Clarity for Dragonshire, because the reduced cooldown on Blizzard actually does allow her to wave clear and secure picks. But you have these... It's like an 8-second window where you have the potential to make that happen. And we've seen it in amateur play not too long ago. Oddish's team did it. But what if Jaina had a talent that lowered Blizzard's cooldown in exchange for losing the third wave? It did. It depends on how much it lowered the cooldown. That'd be interesting. She still has the mobility problem, though. Kael'thas has Mana Barrier and a stun. Jaina has a slow. That's her only defense against getting picked, is a slow. Oddish just goes by Steph. Oh, okay. Did not get the memo. Sometimes we see Divine Shield, other times we see Divine Storm. What is the reasoning for each of these picks when we see them in HGC? Divine Shield should be... Okay. A lot of people think Divine Shield is a save mechanic. It allows you to save someone because you just put it on them and they're safe. And they're loved and they're warm and embraced. You can save someone with Divine Shield. Saving someone with Divine Shield is a low value move. Divine Shield should be used offensively. She rebranded so Nintendo does not go after? Oh, that's fair. Divine Shield should be used offensively. So in order for Divine Shield to be the pick, you need to have a dive hero or a hero who's going to be positioned very, very aggressively forward and is going to go in and do something. Get it done. If you have a Greymane, you get Divine Shield. If you have Ariel, Vala, Uther, and you're trying to enable the Vala, you can go Divine Shield. If you want to enable the Vala to play more aggressively, and that feeds back into giving the Ariel more hope, and then you can have this double save, right? The Vala is never going to die. If you have a Sonya, she can spin to win and heal herself back up to full, and there's nothing they can do to interrupt the spin. If you have an ETC, you can Divine Shield the Mosh Pit and guarantee it can't be interrupted, and that wins the fight single-handedly. Divine Shield needs to be reliably able to win a fight by enabling a hero or a thing. It's kind of gimmicky. We've never seen it in competitive play, but pros will do this in Team League when they're trolling. They'll go Divine Shield Shadow Assault Zeratul, and they'll just click on someone and they die. And there's literally nothing you can do because it's Shadow Assault Zeratul. They'll never do that in a real game, but they do it in Team League. You need to be enabling something specific with Divine Shield that's offensive in nature. You can use it defensively if the situation calls for it, but then you have to realize that you're down that really, really important cooldown for enabling your team fight. Divine Storm is what you go every time that you don't need Divine Shield or can't use Divine Shield defensively. Divine Storm is a really good counter swing heroic against dive comps. So if you see someone pick a dive comp, then you pick Uther, and then they dive into you, and then you Divine Storm them, and they die. Seems good. Divine Storm is a really good interrupt because it's basically instant. If you have really fast fingers, you can interrupt Sanctification with Divine Storm. You can interrupt Twilight Dream. You can anticipate the Twilight Dream and interrupt it with Divine Storm. Stuff like that. If they have a pull comp, so they have like an Alarak or a Stitches, you can go Divine Storm. You can eat the hook on purpose. Divine Storm the team as they try to kill you. Your team comes in, goes for the cleanup. You're dead, but then you're healing. And you've already used your cooldowns, so you continue. Yeah, Genji with Dragonblade, another good example. So Divine Storm has... I would say Divine Storm is actually the default except for the fact that Uther is specifically drafted to enable dive comp so frequently that we see it split pretty much 50-50. I'm actually going to check, but I would not be at all surprised if in Hero League, Divine Storm just had a significantly higher win rate, because I really don't think... It's a little bit higher. Not a lot higher, but it is this is Master Diamond, so it is a little bit different, but it's his highest... It's in his highest win rate builds, right? This is the last 9 weeks. And if I look at just all leagues... If I look at all leagues, Divine Storm is higher, but actually Divine Shield has a higher win rate build. It's interesting. So yeah, if you are like in a coordinated environment with the right hero, Divine Shield is broken. But in environments where you're not enabling a specific hero, or you don't have comms or good communication, Divine Storm's going to be better. And as we talked about, a lot of teams have bad comms, so I'm not surprised that they're having more success with Divine Storm. I had to plead with a Diamond 5 Uther to de-shield my Genji in fights so I could Dragon Blade the backline to death. Oh my god. Not Divine Shielding a Genji with Dragon Blade. We've seen a rise in the use of Leap over Wrath the Berserker on Sonya. Why is that? Because fragile. It's really... Because fragile. The way Leap works is it needs to kill someone. If you go Leap, unless for some reason you have a really bad draft and you just need to really interrupt someone, you need to kill someone with Leap. The thing about the current meta, though, is you have a lot of very fragile, highly mobile heroes, and if someone like Genji dives in and then you Leap him, and then you spear him with Poison Spear, and then anyone else in your team does anything, he actually dies. You can 100-0 Li Ming with Poison Spear if you Leap her, and then hit her with Spear. And if you hit the Leap, the Spear should not be able to miss. You get a slam in there, so it's actually Leap, Slam, Spear, Slam. So you get 2 slams guaranteed. There's a gimmick build with the increased damage at 16 on Slam that actually allows you to 1 round a significant number. Like 1 rotation of abilities will kill someone. A significant number of some of the mid-health heroes. I think you can still do Thrall if he doesn't get any abilities off. But basically, Leap has to be able to kill someone in order for Leap to be better than Wrath. But when you have heroes like Chromie and Genji and even Malfurion or Lunara, you can 1-round those people. So in those situations, you go Leap and you just kill them. This is in my Sonya guide. In my Sonya guide, if everyone would like to read it. I remember this Uther who only ever de-shielded himself after everyone else was dead. Lord Boo, that whole statement hurts me. This is another Stitches question. Superstars lost with Stitches, and the Stitches pick seem to get very little value. Again, it's hooks. Like, if you watch the Superstars game, people literally just walked away from the hooks. They didn't have to, like, run away. They just walked. You need good communication to have Stitches be a good pick. And you need follow-up CC. Uther is the strongest support in the game, so why can't NA win with him? EU and China are over 60% win rate. Calms. Cav ignored like 3 of my questions. I answered all of them. Didn't I? Oh, no, I didn't. I ignored 2 of them. I scrolled down too far. This is my bad. Alright, so we're going to go back to Lord Boo's questions. I apologize. Tempos Kala was recently in your stream. Yes, he was. Shout out to Kala if he's here. Now that you understand the reasoning behind it. So Fury and Cattle basically switched. Fury is the bruiser, Cattle's the tank. Cattle's the mind of the team and calls their initiations, it seems like. So they put him on tank so it's clearer. I talked about the ignore Chen stuff. We talked about that Chen a lot earlier. I think it's made their shot calling awkward. Tempestorm is not adjusted to the roll swap. They need to adjust the roll swap, and I'm not sure how they have not adjusted the roll swap, considering how many weeks they've had. Has Fury ever played Bruiser competitively? Hasn't he? I don't think Fury has ever played anything but tank in a competitive team. He has to completely relearn his role. And Bruiser's pretty different from tank. And the heroes are all really different. They're not there yet. They're obviously struggling with it. I'm not sure. This is a bakery thing. So whenever there's roster swaps, Bakery's comment is teams shouldn't roster swap just to roster swap, but if teams genuinely think they've hit their ceiling with the team they have or the arrangement they have, then they should change, even if they'll be worse for a while, if they want to continue to improve. They should and they have to. Bakery will always say that. And he's right. He's just objectively correct. You can hit a ceiling with a certain group of people. And pushing past that ceiling could be difficult, if not impossible. So if Tempo Storm felt like they hit a ceiling with Fury on tank, and they're comfortable with sucking for a while until they adjust, but I'm not confident that it was the right idea. I think they could have changed their shot calling arrangement, and it would have been better. It would have been harder, but it would have been better. I think this puts a lot of burden on Fury. And I don't know. I'm not sure if it was the right decision. I mean, time will tell, right? If they don't go to Western Clash, it was the wrong decision. That's the metric. If they don't make top 3, this was a bad decision for the team. We'll just have to wait and see how it pans out. So far, it's not looking good. We can definitively say that so far it's not looking very good. Game 4 between Tempo and Superstars and Sky Temple is pretty close at the end. Could Superstars have done anything to win those last 2 fights? Or are they basically doomed to be squeezed stuff and they started to come back? There's nothing you can do when you're that far behind if you're up against even or better teams. So if we assume Tempo Storm is even with Superstars, there's nothing to do to win. A good example of the opposite case, where a team is better and can come back, is Ballistics. And they were Ballistics at the time, versus L5 on Sky Temple at the Gold Club World Championship. I actually had the privilege of casting that game. L5 literally came back 0 keeps to 3 keeps. Like, Tempo Storm basically had their entire inner structure, including gates and towers. And Ballistics had their core. Or Ballistics versus Tempo Storm. Ballistics versus Tempo Storm. Ballistics / L5 versus Tempo Storm. And they came back and won. Like, they were down 2 levels with nothing but core left, and they won the game. Probably the most insane Sky Temple comeback you will ever see. It's on my YouTube channel. You can go look for it. It's correctly labeled. It's Tempo Storm versus Ballistics. Check it out. If you want to. If you don't want to, it's fine. Okay. I hit all your questions now. Uther's the strongest support in the game. Uther enables fast fights. So actually, Dread talked about this a lot. In order for Uther to be good, your draft needs to emphasize Uther's strengths. Uther is a burst support, which means you need to go in, take a lot of damage, get healed, and make something happen. And if you don't make something happen, his cooldowns won't be back up. His cooldowns are down. The alternative approach is draft Uther and then draft lots of heavy sustained damage so that you can wear people down over a long period of time, and that way his cooldowns can get maximum value because you can actually use them for sustain over a longer period of time in like a poke style comp. That's kind of awkward. It's not as easy to do. Just go in and kill people. But yeah, people aren't drafting Uther with dive heroes, and they're not diving in when they have Uther. In some cases, we see the Divine Storm, and they basically drafted Uther away. They didn't want Uther, they just didn't want the enemy team to have it, and they take Divine Storm and use it to counter swing heroic. But if the enemy team doesn't have an engage comp, then a counter swing heroic goes way down in value, way down in value. There's actually a point about Divine Storm versus Divine Shield that I didn't even bring up, and I should have. Divine Storm enables someone on your team, so it's you need to execute. Or Divine Shield enables someone on your team, so you need to execute. Divine Storm counters the enemy team positioning in a lot of ways. So you need to wait for them to try something and then counter. It's a little bit better, a little bit easier in all cases to be proactive. So anytime you see Divine Storm and you're like, yeah, Divine Storm's the right pick, Uther might not have been the right support. He might have just been a denial pick, in which case you're in awkward territory. Because you want a draft that enables you to do things, not a draft that just prevents your opponent from doing things. Because then the burden of execution on you is to respond in the narrow windows of time that your opponent gives you, and they get to pick the window. It's awkward. Reactive drafting is something that a lot of teams struggle with. It's okay to give up Uther as long as you have a plan for dealing with Uther. And if you don't have a plan for dealing with Uther and you don't want to give him up, but you don't want to have him on your team, ban him. Like, use your bans for things you don't know how to deal with. Don't use your bans for things you can deal with that are just hard. And I think Uther is not going anywhere, so teams should learn to deal with him. Or except they can't deal with him, ban him, and then figure out how to deal with everything else that's not Uther. NA does not do this well. Expert versus Fnatic. Team the Spider Queen. Brightwing pick. My guess is they wanted Ariel, but they were scared of Gorge plus Emerald, so they picked Brightwing as a deny pick. I also think Fnatic didn't pick Healer on their 3-4 to cause exactly this. They could have taken Brightwing. I don't think that was a consideration. I do think Brightwing is something that Fnatic likes anyway. Like, Fnatic plays Brightwing. They're okay with it. They're comfortable playing around the dynamic that Brightwing forces into a comp. Brightwing is a... We're going to actually look at this draft since we're talking about it. So this is Expert versus Fnatic. Team of Spider Queen. This is not the right... This is not the droids you're looking for. So this is the column. This is the draft order. So first pick a Nubrak, Genji Greymane, and so the the question is, Fnatic could have picked Brightwing right here, right? But Expert was wanting to pick Ariel. And didn't because they were afraid of Hook plus Gorge. And they were afraid that Fnatic would last pick Brightwing for Emerald Wind to peel the Hook. Or to peel the comp. So they picked Brightwing instead, and then Fnatic couldn't pick it. I think it's actually not even that complicated. I think it's less complicated than that. I think it's the movement speed. They basically wanted to patch Cassia's weakness of having no movement and no escapes. And Brightwing does that really well. Brightwing's also the best anti-dive support in the game in many ways. And Brightwing and Genji are both very divey heroes. And you get the sustained healing aspect, and Tassadar Shield essentially works as a burst heal, right? Tassadar Shield is the burst, and the sustain comes from individual abilities like Ring of the Leech, and Essence, and Claw, and Anubrak has his shield. And then between Globes and Brightwing sustain healing, everyone should say relatively topped off. That's the line of thinking. I don't think this was a massive draft consideration where like we have to deny Brightwing. I do think that the Ariel was something they were afraid of because Ariel doesn't have cleanse, which is something that was not mentioned in the question. But this is a big part of this thing is cleanse. They look at the stitches, you look at the roots from Arthas and Malfurion, and you're like, well, we need cleanse. Can't draft Ariel, she doesn't have cleanse. And so it's the best of the rest that have cleanse available. I would have drafted Rhaegar there. 100% would have drafted Rhaegar into the Spider Queen over Brightwing. But they drafted Brightwing. Emerald wouldn't have gotten that much value if they picked it over Mouth. Mouth is a better pick for Fnatic there. Tempest versus Mighty, game 2. What's the idea behind this KT build? So,
by BDG.
Believe it or not, this is a meta KT build in Korea. Let me see if it's on screen. It's not. We'll go to there. Should be on screen. We're gonna mute the cast. So the build is Mono Barrier 1, which is definitely meta. The increased range on Gravity Lapse, which is totally meta because it allows you to initiate. But then it gets into something different. This is a build. This is a Korea specialty build. It is the Sun King's Fury at 7, the increased Pyromaniac, and then the double trait, and then Master of Flame at 20. And the reason this build was invented in Korea was as an anti-Ariel build. Because everyone has to group up to get healed by Ariel. By constantly pinging everyone with bombs, you reduce Ariel's overall healing efficiency by forcing people to spread out, so she can never heal more than 2 people unless they spread bomb. It was specifically designed against Ariel comps. It can work against heavy melee comps, but it's not as good as Flame Strike because Burn Flesh is so good against heavy melee comps because they tend to be relatively high HP. You see how no one on Mighty has is an Ariel? You see how that's a thing? So this is Honkono, who's a tank main, playing KT. And as embarrassing as this is, this does happen, where pro players who role swap will try builds from other pro players, and they'll play them without understanding why the build exists. So when you guys come ask me questions about why does this build exist, I don't want you to feel too bad about that, because sometimes pros don't know either. It's not good in this context. It's not good against Malthael. Because the increased range from Flame Strike makes you super safe against Malthael, so that at 20, like, it's just strictly better to go on Flame Strike build. It's not better for Wave Clear. It's not better against Rhaegar. You can make an argument that it's gonna, like, spread after Sanctification. It's stupid. They have 2 ranged heroes, so it's not like they're heavy on melee. There is 0 reason to go this build. Follow-up, there's 0 reason not to go Devil's Due on this map. Oz Diablo. You should go Devil's Due on every Wave Clear centric map where you're fighting in or near lanes 100% of the time, because the amount of damage that the amount of healing that it gives you is more than the amount of damage that the Q talent prevents in almost every instance. So you pick up a globe and you go into a fight, it's essentially like pre-tapping, right? You pick up a globe and then fight, especially because the armor doesn't work against percentage-based damage. And there's a Malthael and a Tychus on the other team. There's a Malthael and a Tychus. The 2 things that are going to kill you are the 2 heroes that armor does absolutely nothing against, and picking up a globe would actually, like, straight up save you if you had Devil's Due. So, yeah. To say I'm disappointed in Tempest is to dramatically understate the case. Like, dramatically. Alright, that's all the... Oh! There's one more question from the Reddit thread. I've been wondering, with the map pool being locked across multiple phases, would it be better competition to hold a second round of team votes? It wouldn't be pointless because there's one more map. So there would have to be a different map in the map pool. I'm not going to say that map would be Hanamura, but man, do people hate Blackhearts. Man, do people hate Blackhearts. And Garden. I think Blizzard is putting it off specifically because they don't want to introduce a new map into the map pool, and a new map would get introduced. I think there are maps in the current map pool that people like less than Hanamura. And Hanamura has some interesting strategies, and there's certain teams that be like, we could play on Hanamura. We could win. We could totally win on Hanamura. Let's put Hanamura in the map pool. It would not improve the level of competition, though, because teams have been practicing on the current map pool for so long that they're really starting to get to a level of proficiency with them. If you changed up the map pool now, the level of competition would go down because teams would be bad. They would take them a long time to figure out the new map. Do you think Hanamura would basically place Warhead? No, there's teams that love Warhead. There's no way Warhead's ever leaving now. Now that there's certain teams that are specialists in Warhead, they'll never vote to have it removed. And there's enough teams that specialize and know they can win on Warhead that they'll never get rid of it. But everyone hates Blackhearts and Garden, including Blizzard, because they're boring. When Blackhearts and Garden are in the map pool in competitive games and we're forced to watch them, the number of complaints that Blizzard gets is like unreal. It's unreal. It's just never gonna happen. All right, questions. We have been talking about Professional Heroes of the Storm and the patch notes for 2.5 hours, for the record, and I did not have enough water. So, what do I think you get draft? Braxis? Okay, let's look at the map pool. I need to have it in front of me. Counters to Sturkov? Just kill him. He has no mobility. I guarantee you, day one of Stukov, without his ridiculous bugged healing from PTR, there's going to be a lot of Stukov players who are like, I'm a melee hero. I should be able to melee. And they're gonna do. And some enterprising Muradin or ETC or whatever is gonna be like, hey, there's a guy in the front line. Bop. And so it's just gonna be like, thump. Because the team will fall up. Most people are gonna feed on Stukov, I think, because people were like almost feeding on PTR, and he had 50% extra burst healing. Basel Stukov Shovel versus the other one. They're both kind of peel, right? They're both kind of peel. But the Shovel is basically a better version of Cocoon when it comes to forcing a 5v4. And the Slappy Hand is reactive. So ignoring any other considerations like cooldown and armor and other nonsense, the Slappy Hand is reactive and a counter swing heroic, and the hand is proactive. And we just had a conversation about this. In general, proactive everything is better, at least in coordinated play. Reactive things are really good when teams are bad. So it's Battlefield of Eternity, Braxis, Cursed, Dragonshire, Shrine, Sky Temple, Tomb, Towers, and Warhead. Those are all staying. Like, no one want to get rid of this. So I guess the question is, are they going to stay at 9 maps? If they stayed at 9 maps, Hanamura maybe replaces Sky Temple, because a lot of teams don't like it. They don't enjoy drafting on it right now. It doesn't suit a lot of their playstyles. I mean, you can see that a lot of Sky Temple games come down to boss because one team is winning, right? One team is just straight up winning, and the other team has to go for boss to have any chance of coming back in the game. So they just go with boss and see what happens. And that happens to certain teams consistently, right? But all the 2-lane maps are popular with about half the teams and not popular about the other half. So those are staying. Cursed Hollow and Dragonshire, and Cursed Hollow, Dragonshire, and Infernal Shrines are the most popular maps in competitive by far. So those aren't going anywhere. So Towers, Warhead, Tomb, or Sky would maybe get replaced by Hanamura if they stayed at 9 maps. If they didn't stay at 9 maps, then I think Hanamura would be the 10th map. Because if they add a map, then they might add another slot to the map pool. Maybe Warhead actually would get replaced. Maybe there's enough teams that don't want to learn Warhead. Blue Laguna, thank you for the follow. There may be enough teams that don't want to learn Warhead that Hanamura would come in instead. I mean, if you're going to learn a map, you might as well learn a two-lane map. It's easier. And more draft dependent, so all you have to do is get good at drafting. Well, actually, Warhead is very draft dependent because you need to draft the right kind of mobility and the right amounts. Global and local mobility heroes. I don't know, guys. It's a really hard question. Because I'm thinking about all the teams, and I'm thinking about all the players and how they feel about Hanamura and how they feel about other maps, and I don't know which they hate more. Like, it's not a question of which one they like. It's a question of which one they hate more. And I don't know the answer. Also, because of the Hanamura changes, you never know. People might be like, oh, Hanamura's fine now. We totally play that competitive. There's some players who are like, Hanamura's fine. We totally play that competitive right now. And that was before the changes today. So, I mean, they get paid, so yes. Paid is an interesting word. So the Oxford English Dictionary, the original definition of professional is belonging to an order. So like when we say someone's a professional plumber, he would belong to a plumber's union. It was used in a religious context. So you would like belong to a certain sect or order of priests, and you would maintain the moral standards associated with that sect. Which, you know, maybe you don't eat certain meat on certain days, or maybe you have to wear your socks inside out. Whatever nonsense it was with your particular thing. That's the origin of the word professional. And it only later became to be associated with the idea of being paid to maintain a certain standard. So doctors are supposed to maintain a certain ethical standard, and they're professionals. And a doctor is a professional because he maintains that standard, no matter if he's getting paid or not. If he's working pro bono or not getting paid, there's certain things a doctor has to do by law, but he's maintaining a certain ethical standard of behavior, regardless of when he's getting paid. And in modern context, it definitely means if you get paid to do something, you're automatically professional. I don't consider myself a professional streamer, even though technically I get paid a certain amount of money from donations and ad revenue and now subscriptions. By the way, thank you to my 13 subscribers. 13 is my favorite number, for the record. So having 13 subscribers makes me pretty happy. But I wouldn't consider myself a professional streamer, so I don't make a living off of it. So at what point do you get... I think you have to get paid a certain amount of money if you want to define it that way. I think that the HGC qualifies. I think that's enough money to qualify as a professional. But there is a cutoff, and it would be interesting to debate where the cutoff is. We gotta get to 169 subs then, because 13 times 16. I'm okay with that. I'd actually be okay with any multiple of 13. Alright. I'm actually losing my voice a little bit. I don't know if it's obvious. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm actually losing my voice a little bit. So, last minute questions. They can be about anything. They can be about HGC. They can be about heroes. Any last minute questions? We'll call it a day. So this is interesting. My first couple HGC shows didn't run that long because I tried really hard to be clear and concise and quick. And this one ran for more than 2.5 hours, and so did last week's. And my viewership was actually really high during it. So I think that my impression what I'm getting from that is that all of you like tuning in and talking about things in really minute detail. So I'm going to keep doing it. I want you to know that if that's what you're enjoying about the stream, it's going to keep happening. But it may not be as popular on YouTube. I need to get an editor who can do clips for me, so I can like clip something together that's shorter for YouTube. But I like doing this. I like sitting around and talking about it with you guys. It's fun. And girls, is Shogo Ariel something to expect more of? Yes. If teams got really good at playing Shogo Ariel, you wouldn't be able to let Ariel through a draft. I don't think. First pick Ariel would be absolutely ridiculous, or you'd have to ban Cho in like. So the first step of what should happen here is Ariel should be first picked. You should not draft a battery in the 2-3 slot, and then everyone's forced to ban Shogal. And then if Cho'Gall's really good, what'll start to happen is it'll go Ariel and then Shogal, and they'll have 3 picks to think of counters, but you'll have had 2 bans. Do you think Vala should receive a change in the balance between her damage and sustain? That's a really hard question. Does Vala do too much damage for her fragility? I would be happier with Vala if she had a slightly increased range on Vault, slightly higher HP, and slightly lower damage. I think that would make her better for everyone who's not a pro player, but it would make her not as good at competitive. Even with the Vault buff, it would make her not as good at competitive. And I think that might be just enough of a nerf. Like, that's like a net... Technically, that should be a net 0 change to her viability. Like, should be a net 0 change overall. You're basically not... You're nerfing one thing just as much as you're buffing something else, so it's like a net 0. But the way you're doing it... She may be involved in too many drafts. She may need a slight adjustment. Maybe. It's one of those things that's borderline. Like, Vala's on the border of needing changes. Like, very minor tweaks. But on the other hand, sometimes she looks like really balanced. Like, perfectly knife's edge. You have to be this level of awesome to play Vala well enough to justify picking her. But if you do that, then she's just good enough, not broken. What are your thoughts on new sports on having cleanse? They keep adding stuns. If today Blizzard come out and said no future hero will ever have a stun or a root, then the sports on having cleanse would be fine-ish. But if they're going to keep adding heroes with stuns and roots, and eventually, if you had enough stuns and roots and there's enough damage in the game, the only viable supports are going to be the ones that have cleanse, and the rest are going to be in double support comps only, which is yet another reason we've been seeing double support comps, because of the cleanse issue, at least in pro play. Cleanse, I'm gonna say something that's unpopular. If you're below diamond, cleanse does not matter because focus fire doesn't happen. Cleanse exists to deny CC chains. CC chains exist to kill someone with focus fire. If an enemy team doesn't focus fire, then cleanse isn't useful because CC chains don't matter. Rasteroth, thank you for the follow. Every master player is in my chat right now. I was like, no, don't say that. People are gonna not take cleanse. I'm like, well, they'll win more. Honestly, they will. Also, you have to practice with cleanse. Cleanse is an extra button to push, and if you're not willing to practice pushing that extra button, there's really no reason to take cleanse. Cho'Gall pops up a shit ton in TL at Master Jam. Yeah, Cho'Gall's win rate in Team League is really high. Team League is actually... Cho'Gall's actually a hero where 2 people need to be really on the same page with what they're doing. And, like, you're trading your trait back and forth. You have to have a good understanding of when people are going to bomb. You can miss skill shots as Gall because Cho moves in a way you didn't expect. My win rate with certain people playing Cho'Gall is actually 100%. If I'm playing Cho and they're playing Gall, 100%. My win rate with some other people... where they're playing Gall and I'm playing Cho is like 20%. Like, the difference is enormous. But if your reason for picking cleanse is to practice pushing the button... Oh yeah, absolutely. If you are practicing using cleanse, take it 100% of the time, even if it's not the right choice. Just take it every time because you want to practice it. That's a different scenario, though. Like... You'll never be the kind of support player who can cleanse a gust to deny boss steal if you don't take cleanse every single game and practice it. You just won't. You won't have that reaction of, I can cleanse that gust, I can cleanse that gust, I can cleanse that gust. You know, you won't get that split-second cleanse on a mosh pit to prevent the mosh pit from getting erupted. Cleanse is an ability that you need to put a lot of hours into to like think about all the different ways you can use it and then prioritize them in order of wins the game, saves my team. And which one's important in which scenario. But in professional play, they've already done that. They've practiced it. So the question becomes, is cleanse necessary? And the answer is, in some cases, yes. Do all sports have cleanse? No. Well, those sports aren't viable in those situations where you need cleanse. And if that's the case, then drafting can be very, very limited. Because all you have to do, let's say your second pick, the enemy team bans a support, picks a support, and then you don't pick a support. And then they ban a support that has cleanse, pick a support that has cleanse, and now they have double support. 4 supports gone at this point. And they pick heroes that you need cleanse against. And there's like the only hero left that has cleanse is Lily. Do you pick the Lily? The answer is probably not. The answer is you probably pick Johanna because Iron Skin makes her less likely to need cleanse, and then she can push in aggressively in zone, so that the CC chains are less likely to work. Right? That's the traditional answer of we need cleanse, but all the supports that work with our comp that have cleanse are not viable. What do? We pick Johanna as our tank. Sometimes Arthas with Icebound Fortitude will work as well. But it's not like an ideal answer. Oh, Medivh. Medivh's a good answer. You just need anti-burst. Medivh's not a viable option for a lot of players, but obviously competitive. We're reaching the point in competitive where every team has a Medivh player, and they're at least putting some practice into it. So, all right, that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching the patch notes plus HGC post show. A lot of stuff going on in the meta. A lot of sports. Oh, by the way, Korea's playing a new Brack now. If anyone who's curious, Korea is in fact starting to play a new Brack. Thought that was worth mentioning. A lot of double support. Not enough combinations of double support, in my opinion. I think there's some combinations, some talents, and some options from double support that we've not seen yet, and that we should be seeing. So hopefully teams will explore that more. Of course, the reason we don't see things explored Going Alone is here on Wednesdays, and the episodes are then uploaded to my YouTube, which I believe has a chat command. If I could type. It does. It's right there. Yeah, it's youtube.com/c/Keplerguest. And there's a Going Alone playlist. You go look for it. And then we'll be here on Wednesdays. If you join the Nexus Schoolhouse Discord, and there's a particular HGC match that you would like an explanation of the solo lane, you can actually post in the Nexus Schoolhouse Discord and request that I do that for Going Alone. So everyone's actually done that. Every Going Alone episode I've just picked. The only one that was requested was a Twitter request for the TLB versus Dahaka matchup, which I had to go dig up a replay for from the team that likes to run that, who is a Here's the Dorm team. Do you think Mouth is going to... I mean, it's a numbers question. I think Mouth is probably fine now, but we'll have to see. That'll be it. That'll be it, guys. Remember, this is a stream where we never lose. We always win. We learn something. I think there's always a win. I'll be back tomorrow with Going Alone, unless my voice completely gives out, which shouldn't happen. I think I should be fine. And then we'll have a Factorio stream again on Thursday, sponsored again by Radic, and who's a viewer who bought me the game. If anyone's curious what happened. He was like, you really like this game? And I'm like, maybe. And he's like, here, I bought you the game. I was like, okay, I'll play the game. He actually bought me 2 copies, and I'm going to give one of them away on Thursday. So if you wanted to try Factorio, or you don't know what Factorio is, tune in. If you like Factorio, you might have a chance of giving a free copy of it. Have a good night, everyone.